Part 1. The Lawsuit. The envelope arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. I remember because I was watering the small lemon tree my late wife had planted 10 years ago. The sun was warm, the birds were loud, and for the first time in months, I felt peaceful. Then I saw the courier standing at my gate. "Mr. Harold Whitman?" he asked. "Yes." "You've been served." Those 3 words didn't make sense at first. Served. I hadn't been in trouble a single day of my life. I was a retired school maintenance supervisor, 40 years fixing broken lockers, leaking pipes, and classroom doors that never closed properly. The only paperwork I ever received was pension letters and Christmas cards. My hand shook as I opened the envelope. Inside was a court notice. Plaintiff, Daniel Whitman, my son. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my mind refused to believe what my eyes were reading. I read it again, and again, and then the line finally hit me. Claim for damages, $600,000. My knees gave out and I had to sit on the porch steps. My son was suing me. 3 weeks earlier, Daniel had come to my house with a smile and glossy brochures. "Dad, I found the perfect place," he said, spreading pictures across my kitchen table. A huge modern mansion, glass walls, swimming pool, marble floors. "It's $1.8 million, he said proudly. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. "Daniel, why are you showing me this?" "I need help with the down payment. Just $300,000. I thought he was joking. "Son, I live on a pension. I don't have that kind of money." His smile faded. "You have Mom's savings." My chest tightened at the mention of my wife, Eleanor. She had died 2 years earlier after a long illness. Every dollar she left me was security, medical emergencies, living expenses, and honestly, survival. "That money keeps me alive," I said gently. "I can't give it away." Daniel leaned back in his chair, annoyed. "You're being selfish." Selfish. I had raised him alone after his mother got sick. I worked double shifts, sold my truck once to pay his college tuition, ate canned soup for months so he could have a laptop. But I stayed calm. "I love you, son, but I can't risk being homeless at my age." He stood up. "You'll regret this." He walked out of my house and slammed the door. That was the last time I saw him, until the lawsuit arrived. I sat in my living room staring at the court papers for hours. The claim said I had emotionally damaged his financial future by refusing to help him invest and had withheld promised family support. Promised. I never promised him a single dollar. But what hurt wasn't the money. It was the realization. My son didn't just want help. He believed he was entitled to my life savings. That night I didn't sleep. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "You forced this, Dad. I hope the court makes you do the right thing." I stared at the message for a long time. Then, slowly, something inside me changed. I wasn't angry. I was calm. Because Daniel didn't know something. Something I had never told him. And when the judge heard it, everything would change. Asterisk before part 2. If this story surprised you already, subscribe and stay till the end. The courtroom hasn't even begun yet. And what comes out will shock everyone. Asterisk. Part 2. The Lawyer. I had never been inside a lawyer's office before. The waiting room smelled like coffee and old books. Framed certificates covered the walls, law school honors, bar memberships, and photographs with smiling clients. I felt completely out of place sitting there in my worn jacket and work boots. A young receptionist looked at me kindly. "Mr. Whitman, Ms. Carter will see you now." I stood slowly, my knees stiff, and followed her down a long hallway. Inside the office, a woman about my daughter's age stood up from behind a desk. Sharp eyes, calm expression. "Harold Whitman?" She asked, offering her hand. "Yes, I'm Rebecca Carter. I read your case file." She motioned for me to sit. "I'll be honest, this is unusual." I handed her the lawsuit papers. "My son is suing me," I said quietly. Even saying it out loud felt unreal. She read silently for a moment, then leaned back. "He's claiming you promised financial assistance toward a property, investment, and then refused, causing damages." "I never promised anything," I replied. "I only said I couldn't give him the money." She nodded slowly. "I believe you. But in court, belief doesn't matter. Evidence does." My stomach dropped. Am I going to lose my house? Rebecca paused. "Right now, you could." The room felt smaller. She continued, "He has a lawyer. A very expensive one. They are arguing. You have substantial savings and intentionally withheld support after creating reliance." I rubbed my hands together nervously. "That money is my late wife's. It's all I have left." "Do you have proof you never promised him funds?" I shook my head. It was just a conversation in my kitchen. Rebecca tapped a pen on her desk thoughtfully. "Then we need something stronger, because this case isn't really about money." "What do you mean?" She looked directly at me. "Your son expects you to surrender. He thinks you'll settle to avoid court. That's why the claim is so large." My chest tightened. That sounded exactly like Daniel. I was about to leave when she asked one more question. "Mr. Whitman, is there anything about your finances your son doesn't know?" I hesitated. For a long moment, I said nothing. Then I slowly reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope, the one I had kept hidden for years. Inside was a document. I handed it to her. She read it once, then again. Her expression completely changed. Her eyes widened slightly, and she sat forward. "Your son doesn't know this exists." "No." She placed the paper carefully on the desk like it was fragile glass. "Mr. Whitman, if this is legitimate." "It is," I said quietly. She looked at me, almost stunned. "Then your son didn't just make a mistake." "What do you mean?" Rebecca closed the file and smiled for the first time. "He just started a case he absolutely cannot win." My heart pounded. For the first time since that envelope arrived, I felt hope. She slid the document back toward me. "We won't show this yet," she said. "We'll wait until the courtroom." "Why?" She leaned back calmly. "Because the moment the judge sees this..." She paused. "Your son's entire lawsuit collapses." I stared at her. "What is going to happen?" She smiled slightly. "Justice." Asterisk in Part 3, the court hearing begins, and Daniel walks into the courtroom confident, completely unaware his biggest secret is about to be revealed. Part 3, The courtroom. The courthouse looked larger than I remembered from television. Tall marble steps, heavy wooden doors, people in suits walking in and out like they belonged there. I didn't. My hands were shaking as I held the folder Rebecca had prepared for me. I barely slept the night before. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same image, a judge ordering me to sell my house, my wife's garden, the porch where she drank tea every morning. Rebecca met me at the entrance. "You came early," she said gently. "I didn't think I could sit at home waiting," I admitted. She gave a small nod. "Good. Today we stay calm. No matter what your son says, you do not react." I swallowed. "I'll try." We walked into the courtroom, and then I saw him. Daniel. My son stood near the front beside a tall, confident lawyer in a dark blue suit. He looked comfortable, relaxed, even smiling while talking to his wife, Melissa. Melissa glanced at me and smirked. Daniel didn't smile, but he didn't look sad either. He looked certain he was going to win. That hurt more than the lawsuit. I remembered teaching him to ride a bike, holding the seat while he shouted, "Don't let go, Dad." I never did, but somewhere along the years, he let go of me. "Court is now in session," the bailiff announced. Everyone stood as the judge entered. Saturday. The case was called Whitman versus Whitman. Hearing my own last name twice felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Daniel's lawyer stood first. He spoke smoothly, confidently, almost rehearsed. "Your Honor, my client entered a financial understanding with his father. He made a property purchase relying on promise support. The defendant then withdrew that support maliciously, causing severe financial damage." Maliciously. I clenched my hands. Rebecca gently tapped my arm. "Stay calm." Daniel was called to testify. He walked to the stand and swore the oath. Then he looked at me. Not angry, not emotional, just distant. "Yes," he said clearly. "My father promised to help me. He knew I invested because of him." My chest tightened. "That's not true," I whispered, but only Rebecca heard. Daniel continued. "He changed his mind after I signed contracts. I begged him. He refused." The courtroom murmured softly. His lawyer asked, "And what financial loss did this cause?" $600,000, Daniel answered. The number echoed through the room. I felt suddenly old. Very old. Then it was Rebecca's turn. She stood slowly and approached the witness stand. Her voice was calm, but sharp. "Mr. Whitman, did your father ever sign an agreement promising you money?" "No," Daniel admitted. "Any written message? Email? Contract?" "No, but—" "So," she interrupted gently, "this promise exists only in your memory." Daniel hesitated. "Yes." She nodded. "And you were aware of your father's financial condition before you purchased the property?" "I assumed he had savings." "Assumed," she repeated. Daniel's confidence began to fade. I noticed Melissa shifting in her seat. Rebecca walked back to our table, then stopped. She looked at the judge. "Your Honor, the defense would like to present a document." My heart began pounding. I knew what she was about to do. Rebecca opened the folder. Daniel watched casually, still confident. She handed the paper to the bailiff. The bailiff gave it to the judge. The judge read, then paused, then read again more carefully. His eyebrows slowly lifted. The entire courtroom fell silent. Daniel frowned. Melissa leaned forward nervously. The judge looked directly at me. Mr. Whitman, why was this not mentioned earlier? Rebecca answered calmly, because, Your Honor, we wanted the court to see the full truth. Daniel's voice broke the silence. What is that? No one answered him. The judge looked back at Daniel, and then said the words that changed everything. Mr. Whitman, it appears your father is not who you believed him to be. Daniel's face went pale. In Part 4, the judge reads the document aloud, and Daniel realizes the man he tried to sue has been hiding a secret for years. Part 4, the document. The courtroom had gone so quiet I could hear the ticking of the wall clock. Daniel kept staring at the paper in the judge's hand like it might suddenly disappear. What is that? He asked again, louder this time. His lawyer leaned toward him, whispering, but even the lawyer now looked uneasy. The judge adjusted his glasses and looked directly at my son. Mr. Whitman, he said calmly, this document is a property trust and financial guardianship record. Daniel frowned. I don't understand. Rebecca finally spoke. You will. She turned to the judge. Your Honor, please continue. The judge nodded and began reading. This record shows that the defendant, Mr. Robert Whitman, transferred ownership of his primary residence and savings into a protected trust 15 years ago. Daniel blinked. A trust? Yes, the judge continued. The trust was created to protect the estate from financial coercion, lawsuits, and external pressure, including from immediate family members. The words landed like thunder. Daniel slowly shook his head. No, that doesn't make sense. Melissa's face lost color. The judge continued reading. The trustee is not Mr. Whitman himself. The trustee is an independent legal authority, and withdrawals can only be approved for medical necessity or living expenses. Rebecca stepped forward. In other words, Your Honor, my client legally cannot give away large sums of money, even if he wanted to. I heard murmurs across the courtroom. Daniel turned toward me. You lied to me, he said. I finally spoke. I never lied. I told you I couldn't give you the money. You chose not to. He snapped. Rebecca shook her head gently. No, Daniel. He literally could not. Daniel looked back at the judge. So, he actually doesn't have access to his money. The judge answered, correct. The funds are protected and legally restricted. Melissa grabbed Daniel's arm. That's impossible. He owns the house. Rebecca replied quietly, no, the trust owns the house. Daniel looked like the ground beneath him had vanished. The judge then looked at another page, and there is an additional note from the trust creator. He paused. Your late wife, Mrs. Eleanor Whitman. My chest tightened hearing her name. Daniel froze. What? He whispered. The judge read. My husband is too kind. If one day someone pressures him for money, especially family, this trust will protect him from making a decision based on love instead of wisdom. The courtroom fell silent. I could almost hear Eleanor's voice in my memory. Daniel slowly sat down on the witness bench. His confidence was gone. His anger gone. Only confusion remained. You, Mom did this, he said quietly. I nodded. She was always thinking ahead. Melissa suddenly stood. So he tricked us, she said loudly. The judge looked sharply at her. No, the trust predates your financial purchase by over a decade. The court finds no evidence of deception by the defendant. Daniel looked at me, truly looked this time. And for the first time that day, I saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing money. Fear of realizing he never understood his own father. The judge closed the file. Mr. Whitman, he said to Daniel, this lawsuit has no legal foundation. You chose to purchase property based on assumption, not agreement. Daniel's lawyer slowly sat down. He knew. It was over. But the judge wasn't finished yet. He looked again at the document and said, there is one more clause in this trust that the court finds extremely important. Rebecca folded her hands. She had been waiting for this moment. Daniel whispered, what clause? The judge looked directly at him, and everything changed. Asterisk in Part 5. The final clause of the trust is revealed, and Daniel realizes his father never planned to abandon him, but he was being tested all along. Asterisk. Part 5. The clause. The judge held the document a little closer, as if the words themselves carried weight. This clause, he said slowly, is not financial. Daniel looked up sharply. Melissa's nails dug into his arm. The judge continued, it is a conditional beneficiary clause. Rebecca's voice was calm but firm. This is the part we ask the court to consider carefully, Your Honor. The judge nodded and read aloud. If my son, Daniel Whitman, ever attempts to coerce, threaten, or legally force his father into surrendering protected assets, he will be immediately disqualified from any future benefit of this trust. A sharp intake of breath echoed through the room. Daniel's face drained of color. What? He whispered. The judge went on. However, if Daniel demonstrates responsibility, independence, and respect for boundaries, the trustee is authorized to provide support for education, emergencies, or family needs at its discretion. The words hung in the air. Daniel stood up abruptly. So this was a test. He said, his voice cracking, You were testing me. I finally stood too. No, I said quietly. Life was. The judge raised a hand for order. Daniel turned toward me, his eyes wide. All this time, you could have helped me. I could have helped you, I said softly, when you needed help, not when you demanded entitlement. Melissa shook her head furiously. This is ridiculous. You set us up to fail. Rebecca spoke before I could. No, she said evenly. Mr. Whitman set up a system to protect himself, and to see who respected him enough not to exploit him. Daniel's lawyer leaned over and whispered something urgently to him. Daniel barely reacted. Dad, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know. I know, I replied. But you didn't ask. You assumed. Silence filled the courtroom. The judge folded his hands. Mr. Daniel Whitman, he said, not only is this case dismissed with prejudice, but the court finds your lawsuit to be frivolous. Daniel flinched. Furthermore, the judge continued, you are ordered to pay court costs. Melissa gasped. The gavel came down. Case dismissed. As people began to stand and talk, Daniel remained frozen. I watched my son sit there, not angry, not triumphant, but broken. Rebecca touched my arm gently. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "Yes," I said. "I think so." Daniel finally looked up at me. "Dad," he said, "can we talk?" I hesitated, then nodded. "After," I said. "Not today." He nodded back. For the first time in years, he didn't argue. Outside the courthouse, reporters gathered. I ignored them. All I could think about was Eleanor. How she had known this day might come. How she had protected me, and given our son a chance to learn something he never would have otherwise. As I walked to my car, Rebecca spoke quietly beside me. "There's still more," she said. "What do you mean?" She smiled faintly. "The trust's final instruction hasn't been acted on yet." I stopped. "What instruction?" She looked at me. "The one that decides what happens next, for both of you." In Part 6, the final instruction of the trust is revealed, and Daniel must make a choice that could either rebuild his relationship with his father, or lose it forever. Part 6, the final instruction. The courthouse parking lot was nearly empty by the time Rebecca and I reached her car. I thought the case was finished. The judge ruled. The lawsuit was dismissed. My house was safe. But Rebecca hadn't looked relieved. She looked thoughtful. "Mr. Whitman," she said gently, "there's something we still need to do. You said the trust had another instruction." She nodded. "Yes, and it can't wait." We drove across town in silence until we stopped in front of a small brick building. Harrison and Cole trustee's office. I frowned. "Why are we here?" "Because," she said, "the trustee has to read the last section of your wife's instructions, to both you and Daniel together." My chest tightened. "Daniel too?" "Yes." I didn't like the idea. After everything that happened in court, I wasn't ready to face him again. But Eleanor had written it. So I walked inside. Daniel was already there. He was sitting alone in the waiting area. No Melissa. No confidence. Just a tired man staring at the floor. When he saw me, he stood up awkwardly. "Dad." I nodded but didn't speak. A grey-haired man stepped out of the office. "Mr. Whitman, Daniel, please come in." We sat across from him at a large wooden desk. He opened a sealed envelope. "This letter," he said, "was written by Mrs. Eleanor Whitman and scheduled to be opened only if a legal conflict occurred between father and son." My hands tightened. The trustee began reading. "If you are hearing this, then something painful has happened between you two. Robert, you love too easily. Daniel, you expect too quickly. Money does not destroy families. Pride does." Daniel looked down. The trustee continued. "I did not create this trust only to protect Robert's savings. I created it to protect your relationship." My throat tightened. "Daniel, if you are listening, it means you crossed a line. But you are still my son, and I believe people can grow if they choose humility." Daniel wiped his eyes. Then the trustee read the final paragraph. "The remaining funds of this trust will not go automatically to Daniel. Instead, they will be released only if father and son complete one condition together." Daniel looked up. What condition? The trustee folded the paper. You must spend 6 months working together, not in business, not in investment, but in service. We stared at him. Service? I asked. Yes, he said calmly. Mrs. Whitman selected a community housing charity. You will both volunteer weekly repairing homes for elderly residents. Daniel blinked. No money. Until we do that. Correct, the trustee said. And if either refuses, Daniel forfeits all inheritance permanently. The room went silent. I looked at my son. He looked back at me, not angry, not defensive, just ashamed. I don't care about the money anymore, he said quietly. I just don't want to lose you. For the first time since the lawsuit began, my heart softened. I remembered a little boy holding a flashlight while I fixed a sink years ago. Hand me the wrench, Dad, he used to say proudly. I sighed. 6 months is a long time, I said. Daniel nodded. I know. I held out my hand. Then we start Saturday. He stared at my hand for a second, then shook it. And just like that, the courtroom battle ended. But something much harder was about to begin. Asterisk in part 7. Father and son begin working together, repairing homes, and Daniel discovers a truth about his father he never understood growing up. Asterisk. Part 7. The first Saturday. Saturday morning arrived colder than expected. I woke before sunrise, the way I had for 40 years when I worked maintenance at the high school. Old habits never leave you. I made coffee, packed my toolbox, and stood for a moment looking at Eleanor's photo on the shelf. You planned this, I muttered softly. Didn't you? At exactly 7:58 a.m., a car pulled into my driveway. Daniel stepped out, not in his usual designer clothes. Jeans, plain jacket, work boots that still looked brand new. He looked nervous. I opened the door before he knocked. You're early, I said. He gave a small shrug. I didn't want to be late. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. The air between us felt unfamiliar, like we were strangers learning how to talk again. Coffee? I asked. Yeah, he said quietly. We stood in the kitchen, the same kitchen where he once demanded the mansion money. Now he held a chipped mug his mother had bought at a flea market 20 years earlier. Mom loved this mug, he said softly. She did, I replied. He looked around the house, slower this time. Not judging, remembering. We arrived at the community housing site a little after 8:30. A small group of volunteers gathered around an old, leaning house with peeling paint and broken steps. A coordinator greeted us. You must be the Whitmans, she said warmly. We've been expecting you. Daniel looked surprised. They knew we were coming. I nodded. Your mother signed us up. Years ago. I just kept volunteering after she got sick. He stared at me. You never told me. You never asked, I said gently. Our first task was repairing a porch ramp for an elderly woman named Mrs. Alvarez. I handed Daniel a measuring tape. Measure twice before cutting, I told him. He hesitated. I've never done this before. That's okay, I said. Neither had I once. He fumbled with the tape at first. Crooked lines. Wrong measurements. A board cut too short. I messed it up, he muttered. I didn't scold him. I simply picked up another board. Then we try again. He looked at me, confused. You're not mad. I shook my head. Wood can be replaced, I said. People can't. For a moment he didn't speak. Then he nodded slowly and started over. Hours passed. By noon, his hands were dirty, his jacket dusty, and sweat ran down his forehead despite the cold air. Mrs. Alvarez came outside and smiled at us. You boys work hard, she said. My late husband used to fix everything too. Daniel smiled politely. Then she added, Your father has helped me for 3 winters now. Never asked for anything. He even repaired my heater last January. Daniel turned to me. You came here alone. Every weekend, I said. His eyes lowered. I didn't know. No, I said gently. You didn't. We finished the ramp just before sunset. Mrs. Alvarez walked down it slowly with her cane and cried. I can go outside safely again, she said. Daniel stood frozen watching her. No business deal. No profit. No contracts. Just gratitude. On the drive back, he was quiet the entire time. Finally he spoke. Dad. Yes. I think. I understand something now. I kept my eyes on the road. What's that? He swallowed. You were never keeping money from me. I didn't answer. You were trying to give me something else, he said. I glanced at him. And what is that? He looked at his hands, rough, scratched, and sore. How to live, he said. For the first time since the lawsuit, I smiled. But that night, as I locked my front door, I noticed something unexpected. An envelope taped to the mailbox. No stamp. No return address. Inside was a single note. You should have taken the settlement. Now you've cost someone important a lot of money. My chest tightened. This wasn't about Daniel anymore. And suddenly, the past wasn't finished with us. In Part 8, a stranger connected to Daniel's failed mansion deal appears, and the lawsuit turns out to have consequences neither father nor son expected. Part 8, the debt behind the lawsuit. I didn't sleep that night. The note sat on my kitchen table beside Eleanor's photo, and no matter how many times I reread it, the message stayed the same. This wasn't a random threat. Someone was angry, and they knew where I lived. The next morning, Daniel came by again, earlier than usual. He noticed immediately. You look exhausted, he said. I handed him the paper. He read it once, then again. His face changed. Dad, I think this is my fault. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? He sat down slowly. I didn't just buy the house, he said. I already signed contracts. When you refused the money, I couldn't back out. So you lost the deposit? I asked. He shook his head. Worse. I borrowed it. The room went silent. From who? I asked carefully. Daniel hesitated, then answered. A private investor. I didn't like the sound of that. Daniel, how much? $300,000, he said quietly. I felt my chest tighten. And the lawsuit? I thought if the court forced you to pay, I could repay them, he admitted. I panicked. Everything suddenly made sense. The entitlement, the pressure, the desperation. You weren't suing me because you were angry, I said slowly. He shook his head, ashamed. I was scared. The man at the door. That afternoon, someone knocked. Not politely. Hard. I opened the door and found two men standing there. Dark coats. Calm expressions. Not loud, which somehow felt worse. Mr. Whitman. The taller one asked. Yes. We are here about Daniel's loan. Daniel stepped behind me immediately. I told you I'd pay, he said. The man smiled slightly. We expected the court to help with that. It didn't, I said. His smile faded. Yes, he replied. We know. My hands tightened around the doorframe. What do you want? The man held out a paper. Full repayment within 30 days, he said. Or we claim collateral. Daniel's face turned pale. Collateral? I asked. The man looked at me, not at Daniel. The house, he said. My heart dropped. That house is in a trust, I said firmly. He shrugged slightly. Trusts are legal protections. Debts are practical ones. Then he added quietly, your son signed a personal guarantee using your residence as declared family asset. Daniel whispered, I thought it was just paperwork. I realized the truth. Daniel hadn't just risked his own finances. He had unknowingly risked my home. The real consequence. After they left, Daniel sank into a chair. I didn't mean for this to happen, he said, shaking. I sat across from him. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt fear. Not for me. For him. They're not going to hurt us, I said calmly. They want money, not trouble. But I don't have it, he said. I looked at Eleanor's photo again, then at the trust documents still in my drawer. There may be one way, I said. Daniel looked up. What? I exhaled slowly. The trust has an emergency provision, but it requires a decision I've been avoiding my whole life. He stared at me. What decision? I looked him in the eye. The one your mother hoped I'd never have to make. Asterisk in Part 9. Harold considers breaking the trust's final safeguard and reveals a secret about his past that explains why Eleanor protected him so carefully. Asterisk. Part 9. The secret I never told him. That night I finally opened the drawer I hadn't touched in years. Under the insurance papers, under Eleanor's old recipes, was a metal box. Daniel watched me from the kitchen table. You've had that the whole time? He asked. Yes. I sat across from him and placed the box between us. My hands didn't shake when I opened it, because this part of my life had already shaken me enough decades ago. Inside were photographs. Old IDs. A folded newspaper clipping, yellow with age. Daniel picked up the clipping and read the headline. Former partner disappears after business fraud investigation, 1989. He frowned. Dad, why do you have this? I took a breath. Because I was there. He looked at me, confused. I wasn't always a school maintenance worker, I said quietly. Before you were born, I owned a construction company. Daniel blinked. You? A company owner? It was small at first, I said, but it grew fast. Too fast. I handed him a photograph. Two young men stood beside a half-built commercial building. One was me, younger, confident, smiling. The other man. I recognized his face instantly. The man who had come to my door yesterday. Daniel whispered. That's him. I nodded. His name is Victor Hale. Why Eleanor created the trust. Victor was my business partner, I explained. Smart, ambitious, but greedy. I stared at the old photo. He started cutting corners. Cheap materials. False invoices. I didn't know at first. Daniel listened silently. When I found out, I reported it, I said. The investigation shut down the company. Victor lost everything. Daniel slowly understood. He blamed you. Yes. Did he go to jail? No, I said. But he lost his reputation, and he swore I'd regret it. I folded my hands. That's when I left business. I took the first steady job I could find. Maintenance work. Quiet life. No enemies. Daniel looked at the documents again. So Mom knew. I nodded. She was the one who insisted on the trust. She said if Victor ever resurfaced, money would be the first thing he'd try to reach. And now? Daniel whispered. Yes, I said. Your mansion deal put our name back into financial records. He found us. Daniel looked sick. I brought him back into your life. No, I said gently. You made a mistake. He chose revenge. The real choice. Daniel stared at the box. What's the emergency provision? He asked. I leaned back slowly. If the trustee believes our safety is threatened, the trust can relocate me and freeze all assets permanently. His eyes widened. You'd lose the house. Yes. And the inheritance. Gone. He looked at me, shaken. You'd give up everything because of me. I shook my head. Not because of you, I said softly. Because no home is worth more than family. Daniel lowered his head and covered his face. I tried to take your savings, he said. And you're willing to lose your entire life for me. I placed my hand on his shoulder. That's what parents do. For the first time since the lawsuit, Daniel cried. Not angry tears. Not frustrated tears. Regret. But the next morning, Rebecca called. Her voice was urgent. Mr. Whitman, you need to come to my office immediately. What happened? They filed something overnight, she said. Who? Victor Hale, she replied. I felt a chill run down my spine. What did he do? She paused. He's not asking for the money anymore. My stomach tightened. Then what does he want? Her answer changed everything. He's demanding a meeting. With both of you. Asterisk in Part 10, Final. Father and son face Victor Hale, and Daniel makes a decision that proves whether he truly changed. Asterisk. Part 10, The Decision. Rebecca's office felt colder than usual that afternoon. Daniel and I sat across from her desk while she reread the message. Victor Hale had sent. He insists on a face-to-face meeting, she said. Public location. Witnesses present. Why? Daniel asked nervously. Rebecca looked at me. Because this isn't about debt anymore, she said. It's about control. I already understood. Victor didn't just want repayment. He wanted me to feel powerless. We agreed to meet at a small restaurant downtown, neutral ground, crowded enough to stay safe. Victor was already there when we arrived. He hadn't changed much. Older, grayer, but the same steady eyes from the photo in my medal box. He smiled when he saw me. "Robert Whitman," he said calmly. 30 years. I didn't sit yet. "You threatened my family," I replied. He shrugged. "You destroyed my career." I reported a crime. "You destroyed my life," he corrected quietly. Daniel shifted beside me, tense. Victor looked at him. "So this is the son," he said. "The one who brought you back to me." Daniel swallowed but didn't speak. We finally Saturday. Victor slid a folder across the table. "Here's my offer," he said. "Sign over the house and we forget the loan exists." Daniel immediately looked at me. I remained silent. Victor leaned closer. "You live quietly, Whitman. You think the past disappears. It doesn't." I opened the folder. Property transfer papers. He wasn't bluffing. Rebecca whispered, "Don't sign." I closed it. "No," I said calmly. Victor's eyes hardened. "Then the debt continues," he replied. "With interest. Your son will spend his life paying it." Daniel suddenly spoke. "No." All of us looked at him. His hands were shaking, but his voice wasn't. "I signed the loan," he said. "Not him." Victor leaned back. "And?" "I'll take responsibility," Daniel said. "I'll work. Sell the car. Sell everything. But you leave my father out of it." I stared at my son. This wasn't the same man who stood in court weeks ago. Victor studied him carefully. "You think sacrifice erases stupidity?" he asked. "No," Daniel said, "but it proves I learned." Victor watched him a long time. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed softly. "I spent 30 years waiting for revenge," he said, "and the man who hurt me didn't change." He looked at me, but his son did. The tension in the air shifted. Victor slowly pushed the papers away. "The loan stays with you," he told Daniel. "No house. No threats." Daniel blinked. "You're letting us go." Victor stood. "Your father cost me my past," he said, "but you gave him a future." He turned to me. "You were right back then," he admitted quietly. "I was guilty." For the first time in decades, I saw something different in his face. Not anger. Release. He walked away without another word. Aftermath. Outside the restaurant, Daniel stood silently beside me. "I don't deserve forgiveness," he said. I put a hand on his shoulder. "You deserve a second chance," I replied. He looked at the house when we got home. Really looked. "I almost traded this for a mansion," he said softly. "No," I corrected. "You almost traded family for pride." He nodded. "I won't again." Weeks passed. We kept volunteering together every Saturday. Fixing doors, painting porches, repairing roofs. And one afternoon, Daniel handed me an envelope. Inside was a receipt. First payment on the loan, paid by Daniel Whitman. He smiled nervously. "No shortcuts this time." I smiled back. Your mother would be proud, I thought. The lawsuit had started with money, but it ended with something far more valuable. I didn't win a case. I got my son back. The end.